Hello there, you're watching Bizworld. The 2024 budget deficit is expected to be at a 4 to 4.3% of the country's gross domestic product GDP. According to Maybank Investment, the 2024 budget, scheduled to be tabled on October 13th, will be aligned with the government's medium to long-term policies. These include the 12 Malaysia Plan Mid-Term Review, New Industrial Master Plan 2030, Madani Economy and the National Energy Transition Roadmap. Meanwhile, the Fitch Solutions Unit BMI research has maintained its forecast budget deficit at 4.9%, slightly above the government's projection of 5%. BMI also forecasts revenue growth to marginally slow to 15.3% of GDP in 2023 due to the reduction in income tax payable for certain income brackets. The total government debt is expected to reach 60.8% of the GDP this year. Meanwhile, the World Bank has predicted that Malaysia's economic growth will moderate to 3.9% this year, from an earlier projection of 4.3%. Its lead economist, Apurva Sanghi, said this is amid a substantial deceleration of external demand.
It's not just external factors that weigh down on Malaysia's growth, it's also domestic factors. And what are some of those? Well, first is simply just pure sort of accounting, if you will, base effects. So because growth was high last year, because of base effects, growth registers lower this year. That's one. Second, extreme weather events, hot weather affecting agricultural output earlier this year.
He added Malaysia is sensitive to changes in external demand, especially regarding the US and China. The World Bank has also estimated that a 1 percentage point fall in the US growth rate could drag Malaysia's growth by 0.82 percentage points, while a 1 percentage point fall in China's growth rate could reduce Malaysia's GDP by 0.45 percentage points. It also projected a better economic growth of 4.3% for Malaysia in 2024, driven by recovery in global growth, the tourism sector, and anticipated higher oil prices. The country's sovereign wealth fund, Khazanah Nasional, needs to build coalitions with stakeholders to make meaningful progress on complex issues such as climate change, food security and economic development. Its managing director, Dato' Amirul Faisal Wan Zahir, said it requires a whole host of stakeholders to come to some agreement to move forward in some direction. In his welcoming remarks at the Khazanah Megatrends Forum, he added it is impossible to separate economics and politics anywhere in the world, as both sides need to collaborate. He also stressed that balancing those benefits and expense require both economic and political perspectives, and the reality is that economics and politics go hand in hand. Foreign buying of local equities snapped after 2 weeks as funds offloaded 44.7 million ringgit of shares last week. MIDF research said that year-to-date foreign investors have been net sellers, disposing a total of 1.96 billion ringgit. The top three sectors that recorded net foreign outflows were financial services, consumer products and services, as well as healthcare. Local institutions continued their net selling trend for the third consecutive week with net sales of 98.5 million ringgit, while local retailers put an end to their 11-week-long net selling streak, buying 143.1 million ringgit worth of domestic equities. On the international scenario, MIDF said global markets mostly declined last week. The most notable losers were Thailand's SET, Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh VSE and South Korea's KOSPI. Local manufacturers reported a demand weakness at the end of the third quarter, shown evident across a range of indicators in the latest Purchasing Managers Index PMI data. According to S&P Global Market Intelligence, output and new orders both moderated to a greater extent than in August, while new export orders fell. Employment levels also dropped for the fifth month running, and purchasing activity softened. The weakness in demand for inputs also fed through into stocks of purchases as the level of outstanding business depleted. And that's all the time we have for Bizworld. I'm Nadia Azmi. Thank you for investing your time with us and stay tuned.